Baruch Hashem, today was the fourth night of Chanukah, Matzah Shabbos, Parshas Miketz, and we are up to Daf Yud Amud Beis all the way at the bottom. Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, but we're starting at Yud Amud Beis at the bottom. So the second to the last line starts off with Simonim. Zaman, Nosi, Tzorech, Gedi. And that is the Simon. Tanu Rabbanim. Ein Ma'avrin Es Hashana. When the panel sits down to discuss if they're going to be Ma'avir Deshana, there have to be Elabim Mizumonim. They have to be pre-arranged, pre-invited, and pre-selected. As the Rashi says, Shezminon Hanosi Mi Ba'erev. This cannot be a last-minute thing. This has to be that the Nosi, the day before, invites the panel to deliberate on whether or not they're going to add a Chodesh Adar. There's a big shaila in the Rishonim if the Nasi has to personally invite each person. That means he can't just set out a WhatsApp group, say we're meeting tomorrow. He has to do it face to face. Or maybe he could do it through a shliach. And there's even that tzad in the Rishonim to say that he doesn't even have to identify. He could just tell the shliach, get me 7 people. And the shliach can get whoever he wants. Then there's a question, is he number 8 the Nasi, or is he number 7? So these are all shilas, and let's see what we'll encounter as we learn through the sugya. There'll be different rayas to different opinions. So Ma'aseh Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel was a nasi. She'omar heshkimu li shiva la'aliyah. He told the shliach, prepare for me 7 people in the aliyah, which is the place that we're going to be deliberating. So right off the bat, it sounds like he can tell a shliach to pick any 7. That's what it sounds like, but others do not like it. So he came the next morning, Rabbi Gamliel, to this meeting. Hishkim umatza shmoina. He in fact found there was an extra person there. There were 8 people there. Omar, he asked, Mihu she'ala shaloi b'rshus. Who is the one who's not invited? Now, if you hold that he has to personally invite him, he would have known. But it's possible that he did know. He was just making believe that he didn't know. Whoever that person is, Yeret, he should leave. Omar Shmuel HaKatan. Shmuel HaKatan stood up. Now, Shmuel HaKatan was the last thing, the furthest from being a Katan. Shmuel HaKatan was a Talmud of Hillel HaZaken, and the reason why he was called Katan is a shayla in the Rishonim, either because he was such a big honor, as we will soon see, or maybe it's because we know we say in Kabbalah Shabbos, Moshe v'Aharon b'Chayhanav u'Shmuel b'Kayrei Shemoi. Shmuel HaNavi was on the same madrega as Moshe and Aaron. Shmuel HaKatan was the same as Shmuel HaGadol, was the Navi, except for one thing. He didn't have Nevuah. But besides that, he was exactly like Shmuel. So that's why it's called a Katan. So I used the example, Heshi Nuspam as a son, Yaakov Nuspam, was about 7 feet tall, and his nickname is Tiny. You know why? Because spelled backwards, it spells Yaakov Nuspam is tall. So that's Shmuel HaKatan. He was a big person. The Yomar, and he said, Anihu, I'm the one. Shalisi, you know what's unknown? Rabbi Rabbanowitz bought me a beautiful sefer from the Art Scroll that talks about the history of the Torah going through Klal Yisrael with different generations, and it also goes through a small biography of all of the Tanoim and Amiroim. So I looked up Shmuel HaKatan, and Shmuel HaKatan, according to most Shitas, was the Tana who wrote the Tefillah of Elam Al-Shinam. I believe Rabbi Gamliel saw that there's a lot of problems with people trying to influence Yidden to go off to Derech, and he asked Shmuel HaKatan, or he wanted someone to write it, and Shmuel HaKatan, he volunteered, but Shmuel HaKatan wrote the 19th bracha of Shmoneh Esrei, which we call V'lam Al Shinim. And what did Shmuel say? V'amar anihu shalish shaloi b'rshus. I am the culprit. I'm the one who doesn't belong here. I didn't come because I wanted to be Ma'avir Deshana. I had some shayla that I wanted to ask of the Gedolim. I knew they'd be gathered here, so that's why I came. That's one shot. Other Rishonim learn is I wanted to watch the deliberation so I could learn. Omer Loi. So Rabbi Gamliel told him, Shev b'ni shav, you sit, stay here. You're such an Adam Choshev, it's Kedai that you should always be in charge of being Ma'abed Hashem. Ella, what should I do? The Chachamim said, Ein Ma'abed Hashem Ella b'mizumonim. It says they have to be part of the invite. Zok the Gemara, v'loy Shmuel HaKoten hava. Really, the one that was not invited was not Shmuel HaKoten. Alain the Shachrina, it was somebody else. But Shmuel took the embarrassment on himself. He did this to save the real person from embarrassment that he did. There's a similar story. The Yosef Rebbe v'Kadarish. Rebbe was saying shir. It was probably a small, tight shirum. The hariach reach shum. Someone ate garlic that day, and boy, did his bad breath waft through the bismedrash. And Rebbe took offense to that. Amar misha achol shum. Whoever ate garlic today, yotza should leave. Sometimes you could eat beblech, and you also have that problem. Right? But whatever the case is, someone who's going to add an odor to a place shouldn't be there. Guilty. Ahmad Rab Chia v'yotza. Rab Chia got up and took the blame, and he left. Amdu kulam v'yotzu. So everybody followed behind. B'shachar matzu Rab Shimon Rab Chia. Rab Shimon, the son of Rebbe, met Rab Chia. Amalei told him, Atahu shetzi arta la'aba. You're the one who caused pain to my father. Pashup shot is because you obviously ate something that was shum. Amar loy take kazois be Yisrael. There shouldn't be something like this in Yisrael, and there are those who learn that what he said loy take kazois be Yisrael, what he meant was avada, I didn't eat, and his taina wasn't that he ate because he also knew that Reb Chia didn't eat, but Reb Chia caused that everyone should get up and leave. So literally, he shut down Rebbe Shir in the middle of the shir. On that, Reb Chia answered, "Loy take kazois be Yisrael." There shouldn't ever be a time in Klal Yisrael where someone becomes humiliated in public, and it's worthwhile even to be mevatel limutay barabim to avoid being malbim to the chaver barabim. Why? Well, he's asking, why did you have garlic for?
You know,
Should have eaten garlic.
He knows I was going to be embarrassed.
What?
It must have been so bad.
I guess so. Reb Chia, where did Reb Chia get this from to accept the blame for something to save somebody else's embarrassment? Zok Gemara, you know where we got it from? We got it from Reb Meir. Titania, Ma'isa be'isha acha shabasa lebeis midrasha shel Reb Meir. A woman came to the beis midrash of Reb Meir. Amalei, she told him, Rebbe, echad miken, one of your talmidim over here, one of you guys over here, kachenu b'bia. Now, Rebbe used to give malchus for someone who made kedushin with bia. It was a very not fine thing to do. Although technically it works, but it was a very not fine thing to do. So she accused someone in them, one of these people. I don't know if she knew who it was, so she needed a get. Amad Reb Meir because of Lagat Krisos. Reb Meir wrote her a get as if to say it was him to accept the blame. V'nasan, he gave it her, and everybody copied. Yeah, obviously she didn't know, right? Amdu kasvu kulam v'nasan. Everybody wrote it again. Again, Reb Meir saved one of the talmidim from a huge embarrassment. Reb Meir, where did he get it from? He got it from Shmuel HaKoten, our very own Shmuel HaKoten, who was the one who said that he wasn't invited. Shmuel HaKoten, where did he get it from? He got it from Shechanya ben Yechiel, who was one of the people who came up with Ezra to Yerushalayim from Bavel after the Churban Bayis Rishon, after the first Golus of 70 years. And what happened over there? Shechanya ben Yechiel Mibnei Elam told Ezra, Ezra, we severely rebelled in the Rebbeinu Shalom because we took in and we married Goitis, and he asked, we're all in a terrible situation. We all married Goitis, and Rashi says, in fact, Shchonya didn't marry a Goita, but he included himself in that group. Is there any way to purify ourselves of these? And of course, Ezra told them that they have to divorce their wives and send away their children, which was a big mysterious nefesh, and which is what they did. So you see, Shchonya also, he didn't say they did it Averis. He said, I did it Averis. Shechanya ben Yechiel, where did he get it from? He got it from Yeshua, but not from Yeshua, from the Rebbeinu Shalom who spoke to Yeshua. What happened? Klal Yisrael, after Achanus Moil in the Cherem of Yerichai, tried to attack Ai, and they got badly beaten. And Yeshua was in a very bad mood that day. Stand up. Why are you so sad? Chato Yisrael. There's an Aver in Klal Yisrael. Amr lefanov. So Yeshua asked, "Rebbeinu Shalom, Michata, who did Aver? Let me fix it." Amr loy v'chidilta anilach. What am I, a gossiper? You think I'm not going to tell you lashon hara? I'm not going to snitch. You want to figure it out? Hatel geirolos, as if that's not the Rebbeinu Shalom, but it's just a limud that you don't snitch. Moshe, and Kubi came from Moshe Rabbeinu the Chsiv ad Anameyantam. In Parashat Mon, there were some people who went and collected Mon on Shabbos. So Hashem said to Moshe ad Anameyantam, until when are you going to refuse to listen to me? He included everybody in there, not pinpointing who it was. So the Mefarshim asked, why did Rab Chia have to learn from why did Rab Chia have to learn from Rab Meir, and Rab Meir have to Shmuel? Why can't they all learn straight from Moshe? So the Mefarshim say, Avada they learn straight from Moshe. But the Gemara is trying to illustrate throughout the generations how there was such sensitivity amongst them. The other question is why did they learn? Why do you need a special pasuk? Isn't it common sense not to rat out somebody, to try and to cover up for somebody? It's a logical thing. It's a fine, kind thing to do. Zok to Mefarshim, we needed a special limit over here, because it's one thing what Shmuel HaKatan did. He took the full blame, but what about when you're including other people in the blame? Lashchani said we were over. He didn't say I was over. So that he needed to learn from Moshe, or Hashem said at Anamayantem, as well as from Yeshua. So that's where the limit comes from. You know, everyone knows the famous story where somebody went to the Satmar Rebbe and said, "My friend sent me to ask you. He did this and this terrible affair, and he wants to know what he should do to be massacred." So the Satmar Rebbe giggled. He says, "Why did he have to send you? He could have come himself, and he could have said that somebody else sent him." Zog to Gemara Vayter. Tashma, you couldn't pull the wool over the Satmar Rebbe. Tash Tanarabana. Mishamesu Nevi'im Achroinim, when the latest of the Nevi'im passed away, and who were they? Chagai, Zechayu, Malachi. Nistalka Ruach HaKodesh from Yisrael. That's when Ruach HaKodesh left Klal Yisrael. The Mepharshim say that was when Klal Yisrael started to go through a very difficult kufa, where they were severely persecuted, and without Simcha, you don't have Ruach HaKodesh. But Aval Pikein, they still had a secondary way of becoming inspired, like Mishamshim Bevaskel. And Tosfos describes Baskel as like an echo. Again, I never heard it, so I can't tell you what it's like. And if anybody did, they probably wouldn't share it with me. Pamachas, once upon a time, Hayimesubin Baaliyos Beis Guria, Biyarichai, V'nos Naleim Baskel, Minashamayim, and the Baskel came out Minashamayim, and made the following announcement. Yesh Kanecho, there's someone here, sitting here, Sheroyu Shetishra Lov Shchina Kemoishe Rabbeinu. He was royu that even he should have Shchina like Moshe Rabbeinu. But his door isn't Zoichel Lekach. So Nasnu Chachamim Meineim Behil Hazokin. The Chachamim right away looked towards Hil Hazokin. We know that's who it's meant. When he died, Amrullah, Hi Chassid, what a Chassid he was. Hi Onav, what an Onav he was. Talmidei Shel Ezra. Hil Hazokin was at the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash, and he was a Talmud of Ezra. Now, you could see there's a discussion if you were Garish K'Moshe Rabbeinu. Could you say that Hil HaZokin would have been Zoicha to the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu? It says, V'lekamish K'Moshe, Asher Hashem Panim Al Panim. So there are those who learned he was like Moshe Rabbeinu in certain pratim. For instance, he died at 120, and he ruled from 80 to 120. So there are similarities between the life of Hillel and the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. And he was also an unbelievable honor, right? Everybody knows the story with the fellow who made a bet that he can get him angry. Hillel was extremely, extremely humble. Shuv Pa'amachas. And also, this is the first will say that this is my own chiddush. Moshe Rabbeinu climbed the mountain, Har Sinai, and Hil climbed the roof. Right? They were both climbers, right? Shuv Pa'amachas, Hoyim Mesubin Ba'aliyah B'Yavna. They were Talmidei Chacham sitting in Yavna. V'nosna Aleim Baskel Min HaShamayim. And the Baskel came out of Shemayim, and it said, Yesh kan echad sheroyu shetishra alo shchina, elo she'ein doiroi zakai lekach. I just want to mention that Hillel HaZokin, I think, died 40 years before the second Beis Hamikdash was Chorev. And Shmuel HaKatan was his Talmud, he took over from him. And Shmuel HaKatan was there when the Sanhedrin moved out of the Beis Hamikdash and it moved into Yavna. Remember one of the Gedolim said, Tenli Yavne Chachamerchim, Rabbi Mazaka said, Yavne is where the Sanhedrin moved to, and that was under the guy of Shmuel Achot. V'cheshemesh Amar Lov, Hai Chosid, Hai Oniv, Talmidei Shel Hil. Afu Amar B'Shas Misosoi, and we know he was a shtickle Novi, because when he died, he actually shared Nevuah. And what he said was, Shimon v'Yishmael L'charba. It's referring to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel the Nasi, who was one of the Asari Rugei Malchus, and Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yosy Kohen Gadol, who was also from the Rugei Malchus. He predicted that they are going to be killed by the Cherev. The Chavroi, referring to Rabbi Akiva, and I believe Rabbi Chanina ben Trajoin, is what Rashi says. That's correct. Liktala, they're going to be killed. The Shar Amma and the rest of Klal Yisrael, the Visa, they will be terribly humbled. The Akan Sakiyin, many Akan and many Tzoris, Asida and Lamesi al Alma will befall the world. And one of the reasons the Mefarshim say why they died, the Hashar Milchus died before this period, is so they shouldn't have to see that destruction. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Mabava was also one of the Rugei Malchus. And you could have said on him also, Hey Chassid Hayanav. But they didn't. While Yehuda Mabava Bikshu Loimakain, they couldn't do it. You know why? Imagine they're going to be maspid, one of the Asari Rugei Malchus, saying how wonderful he is. That could be taken as a terrible disrespect to the Melech. So they had to be careful, so they shouldn't get killed. So they had to make a quick levaya and not talk too much. Tanu Rabbanan. Ein ma'avrin is Hashana. So now we're getting into halachas of when and what factors contribute to being ma'avrin Hashana. Ein ma'avrin is Hashana, ela imkain yirtza nasi. First, the nasi has to be agreeable. So Bezin can't do it unless they have approval from the nasi. He went to speak to one of the rulers of Syria, and it's a shaila if he was asking permission to be ma'avrin Hashana. Why would they care? Or if he was just going to be mishtadel with some type of issue. The Mefarshim say the reason why the Shilton would have a say, might have an issue with adding an Adar, is because the tax collectors used to collect before Sukkot and before Pesach. If you're going to push off Pesach by a month, so you're deferring your taxes. So that's why he had to get buy-in from them. But being that he was busy by the Shilton in Syria, the Shalovai, he missed the deliberations. The Ibris Hashana, so they had to do it without him, but they did it al Manashi Yirtza. Our decision is only valid if, when Rabbi Gamliel gets back, he's going to be agreeable to our discussion and to our decision. That was the clincher. Tanu Rabbanan. You don't see. Yeah. Tanu Rabbanan. Ein ma'avrin is Hashana. Ela imkain hoisa tzricha mipnei adirachim umipnei gesharim umipnei tanur psachim umipnei golios Yisrael shenekrim kaiman v'adayin lo yigiu mimkaim v'adayin lo yigiu. So there's 4 reasons that each reason, independent of anything else, is enough to push off. We're going to have other reasons as well, but those reasons need 1 or 2 or 3 combined. The only 4 items that in any one of these independent, if they're the only thing, they're the only factor, they are enough to influence it that we should add a month. And what are they? Drachim. After the winter, the roads are muddy, the roads are damaged, and it's coming now to Pesach, and there's going to be Oile Regalim. We need to have good roads. They have to be in good condition. So we push off. If they see the roads are in really bad condition, which is going to cause problems for the Oile Regalim, they can push off Pesach by a month, so they have time to fix the roads. The obvious kasha is, we know from experience it takes 3 years to fix a road. And Lamar, they didn't have unions in those days, right? And Upnei Gesharim, they have to fix bridges. Upnei Tanur Psachim, everybody needed an oven with which to roast their carbon Pesach. But the ovens got mushy and soggy over the winter, so they would need to be dried out. If the ovens were very soggy from the winter, that would be a reason in and of itself why they would push off Pesach. And imagine someone was coming from India and he was traveling. He left very early. He left maybe middle of Av. He left the middle of Shvat or Adar, and he's trying to get to Eretz Yisrael on time, and whatever happened, he was delayed along the way, and now there's a contingency of Yidden who have already departed long ago, and they're not going to make it on time. So for those people, you can actually push off Pesach, even though there's no other factor that demands that. That's a reason why they would push off Pesach. If it's snowing, we don't push it off because they didn't have snow days in those days. People will come and brave the snow. And cold doesn't push it off, they'll brave the cold. And if there are people that live very far away, they need extra time to come, but they didn't leave yet, for them, we're not going to do anything. You should have left earlier. Now, come Pesach, people are coming to Ba'il Regel, they need karbonis, so they need animals. So what if the animals were born late and they're still young and they're still tiny? You don't have good animals. So if there's no good animals, that's not a reason to push off the year. Pesach, why are birds relevant? You don't need that for Korban Pesach. Birds are relevant because when people came to be Ba'il Regel, all of the chiyuvim to bring birds that they had, like your lettuces, and they all brought them then, so they need to have birds. That's not a reason why you push it off, because they don't need a tar. It could be a b'nei yoina, which is even a newborn. Aval oisin sad l'shona. If there's another reason combined with this reason, that would be enough to push off Pesach. Ketat, what's an example? Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was ma'aber deshana one year. And this is the memo that he sent out to Klal Yisrael. We are letting you all know the birds are very young, and the animals are very small. Vizimna the aviva loimota, and the grain has not yet ripened. So there's two reasons here, right? There's the reason of there's multiple reasons over here, and therefore combined you could push off Pesach. Therefore, v'shivras milsa bampoi. It's good in my eyes. I didn't ask anybody. I'm the boss. It's good in my eyes. I'm stressing this for a reason. It's good in my eyes, and because I decided, v'isifis al shata da, I'm adding to this year plus and yom in 30 days. But Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says Chodesh, and Chodesh Rashi tells us it's 29 days. So how could Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel say over here I'm adding 30 days? Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said you only had 29 days. Amar Papa, it's optional. Ratzu Chodesh, Ratzu Shloshim Yom. Whatever Bezdin sees fit, they can make that decision. Zok to Gemara, now that you see the confidence of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel in taking the decision into his own hands completely, right? The Shavras Milsa Ban Pai. Tachazi will come and see Ma'ika, the vast difference between the titans of yesteryear, Takifoi Kadmenoi, Le'in Visani Basroi, to the humbles of today. The Takiva Kadmoi is what Rashi is referring to Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's father. He was a powerhouse. He put the fear of God into all of his Talmidim. He was a powerhouse. Nevertheless, we're going to see when he sent out the memo, it was with much more humility. While Rabbi Shimon, who was very humble, as a matter of fact, Rashi says above Metzia, he tells his son, you are an Ari ben Shual, referring to himself as a Shul, as a lightweight. So he was an Anav, yet he said it with such confidence, like, I am my own. Why? The Tanya Masha Ber Gamliel Shaya Yoshev al Gav Maila Bahar Bayis, who's sitting on one of the steps by Har Bayis. Vaya Yochanan Sofer Aloz, and the famous Yochanan Sofer was sitting there. Aymed Lefonov, Ushloish Igros Chatuchos Lefonov. Munachos. He had 3 blank scrolls there that he was going to fill in to make 3 different announcements. Amar Lo, he told Yochanan, Toil Igros Achada, take 1 scroll, V'chosav, and write the following. Lachana b'nei Galila. To my dear brethren of the Galil, the upper Galil and the lower Galil. Shalom Chanyaska, peace unto you. We are letting you know with this memo. This man bi'ura mata lafrushe ma'isra mimaitna dezesa. We know every 3rd year you have to get rid of all of the ma'ishers that you have in your possession. those that go to the Levi should be given to the Levi, and those that need to be given to the Ani should be given to the Ani. And Masha Sheni, if you can't get it to Yerushalayim, you got to destroy it. So I'm telling you, the clock is ticking. You better get all of your olives that you have sitting and soaking and oozing together. You better take care of them right away. V'toil igarta chada, and then he told Yochanan and write a second brief. So the first brief was sent to the people of the Galil. The second brief was sent because of Lachana b'nei Droima, the people of the Negev and of the south. Shalom Chanyaska, peace unto you. Mudon anachnu l'chayin, we want to notify you. Dizman biura mata lafrushe maisra. Now you have to do zman biur maishers, and you should separate maisher me umre shublaya from your wheat kernels. Why did he tell the north about olives and the south about wheat kernels? So Rashi, very simple. Because in the north they had a lot of olives, and in the south they had a lot of wheat. And then the third letter, because of Lachana b'nei Galvasa, b'Bavel, u'Lachana Madai, the people in Chutz La'aretz, in Bavel and Madai, people all over the world, u'Lashar Kol Galvasa to Yisrael and to the rest of the diaspora, Shalom Chem peace unto you, la'olam forever. Mu'udana nachna l'chayin, with this brief, we are letting you know, to Gizlayer Akichin, V'mraya Arkin, the animals are still very young and small, and V'zimna Aviva Loimota, and the wheat has not yet ripened. V'shafer Milsa, and it's this decision is good, Banpoi in my eyes, U'ba'anfe Chaverai. He was humble. I'm not doing it myself. I needed to consult with my Chaverim. V'sivis al shatada yoymin tlos. So you have a rye from here that in fact Rabbi Gamliel, who should have been more bold, was humble, and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who should have been humble, was bold. Zoktamar, really, Rabbi Gamliel would have also said it in his own name. He was bold. So why did he say the Chaverai? Because technically that was the truth. Dilma Basu Davru. Rabbi Gamliel had a sichsuch with Rabbi Yeshua. He made him come with Makli with Hamiloi, and because he was tough, they actually retired Rabbi Gamliel from his Nesias for a little while. And there was a point where it was shared with Rabbi Eliezer. So it was during this period of time, Dr. Gemara, that he sent this message. And therefore he had to couch it. That's one shot. Another shot they say, in Basad Avruhu, what happened was he was away. He was away. And they had to do it not in his presence on the tonight, like we had on Amud Aleph. So he said, me and my friends, because he's agreeing to his friends, but his friends really made the decision. So there's different shots of it that wouldn't necessarily be translated into humility. Yeah. So again, we have so many different things that are factors, but the only items that in and of themselves, with only they themselves, are those four items that we discussed: the ksharim, the drachim, the travelers, and the what was the fourth one?
Not the oven?
What was the fourth? And the ovens. The ovens.
No,
right?
no, but not.
Aviv is only a reason combined with something else.
Really?
Yes. Aviv is only a factor combined with something else.
Yeah. It's
So-
all physical as opposed to the Yom Tov falling down the wrong.
So we're going to get to that in a second. So that's what we're going to discuss now. There's three factors that you can use. Ala Aviv, if the fruits are not ripened yet. Al Peres Ilan, if the Peres Ilan aren't ripened. Now, the Peres Ilan normally ripen between Pesach and Shavuos. We're talking about, we're in Shvat and Adar when we're making such a decision. Sometimes we're as early as Tishrei, we're going to see. But they're anticipating, it's not 100%. They're anticipating that the pears will not be ripened before Shavuos, and they have to be ripened by Shavuos because that they need to bring Bikurim.
Had the farmer's own on it.
Exactly. And it was not an exact science, and that will come into play. But Akalponim, they're not 100% sure, but that's a reason why they can consider making an extra month before Pesach so that the fruit should be ripened before Shavuos. And Valat Kufa. Kufa is very simple. We want the equinox, which means when the day and night are both 12 hours, we want the equinox to be before Pesach, and we want the equinox to be before Sukkot. And if it's off, that's a factor that we can use, but unlike what you were thinking, that's not a main factor. That needs some other factor with it. Al Shnayim Ein Ma'avin, you need two. You need two factors. But the Al Echad Man, if you only have one of these factors, Ein Ma'avin. However, Ubizman She'oviv Echad Mahen Akol Smechet. If one of the reasons of why you're pushing it off is because the wheat, the grain hasn't ripened, everyone's happy. Why are they happy? Because let's say the grain has ripened, and now they push off Pesach by a month. So they have to wait a month till they can eat it, and they want to use that fresh grain to bring the carbon dimer. If they have to wait a month, it's not fresh anymore. So that's why, if they're one of the reasons why they're pushing it off is because the grain wasn't ripened, which means when they push it off, it'll be fresh, ripe grain for Pesach. There, everyone's happy. Shimon ben Gamliel Omer al Kufa. He just on the Kufa, but he doesn't explain what about the Kufa. So Yibaylu al Kufa b'Samechet. Are you telling me if they pushed it off because of the equinox, that makes people happy? Why would that make people happy? Zok Rashbam very, very nicely. Right. Because what happens if the equinox is going to be before Sukkot, right? The equinox was before Sukkot and before Pesach, but for some other reason they pushed it off, right? So now the equinox is going to end up being so now Sukkot is going to end up being a month after the equinox. If Sukkot is a month after the equinox, that means after Sukkot it's going to be raining already. It'll be the rainy season, and the poor people are going to be oil regular, are going to get soaked on their way home. So because of that, people will be happy if one of the reasons why they push it off is the Tkufa, because the last thing they want is that the Sukkah should be pushed too late into the winter. So that's the upshot. Oil at Tkufa ma'avrin, or for the Tkufa in and of itself, they would be ma'avrin shona, which is what Shlomi thought. Zakt Gemara take it. Taner Rabbanan. When you're calculating and considering adding a month, there's many regions that all have different needs. So which region is dominant? Zok Braisa al Shalosh Artois Ma'avrinis Hashana, Yehuda, the Ever Hayardin, Vagalil. There's three regions that have a seat at the table. Al Shtayim Mehen Ma'avrin. If you remember we talked about you need 3 to start, 5 in middle, and 7 to finish. So that was another reason for the 3, is because there's 3 arotzos. That was all part of it. Remember the Moshe was explaining what that was Birchas Kahanim? That's right. So Al Shtayim in Ma'avrin, well Achdim in Ma'avrin. You need 2 out of 3 that would benefit from this. Uzman Yehuda Achasman, if Yehuda was one of the reasons why you had to push it off, again a chos mechen. You know why? We try to bring the carbon omer from wheat that grew in southern Israel, central and southern Israel. And if Yehuda is one of the reasons why to push it off, that means their wheat wasn't ready, and by pushing it off, their wheat will be fresh and ripe. But if they weren't the reason, it was because of somebody else's wheat, and their wheat was already ready already. So now their wheat's going to be a month old by the time Pesach comes, and that's not so wishful. Talk more about it. And giving deference to the Yerushalayim. Deference. Taner Rabbanan. Ein ma'avrin es hashanim el b'Yehuda. Bezin actually sits. Yes, they need representatives of the Galil. You need representatives of the Yarden, but the best has to sit in Yehuda. The Mevur b'Galil muberes, it would be the Evan will be good at it. Heit Chanani Ishoinoi in Mevur b'Galil ain't a muberes. It's ma'akiv. Amar Bidu Bered Ab Shimon ben Pazi. My time with the Chanani Ishoinoi. Why is it ma'akiv? We have a pasuk. Amar Kol l'shichnoi tidushu uvasa shama. You should look to your neighbor and come to Eretz Yisrael. What does that mean? We darshan called Rishish Hatadorish. When you're petitioning a bezin, you need an important decision, such as Iber Hashana. It should be in the vicinity of the Rebbeinu Shalom, meaning the Lishkas HaGazos, meaning the Sanhedrin in Eretz Yisrael. Taner Rabbanan. In Ma'avrinis Hashana, there are those who learn it from the pasuk of Kimitzi and Teitz Torah. Taner Rabbanan. In Ma'avrinis Hashana, El B'Yoyim. When they sit down to have such a deliberation and to pass, it has to be by day. It's not valid if this happened at night. Kiddush HaChodesh is also only by day. Where do you see that Kiddush HaChodesh has to be by day? Because it says, only in the moment, it says, Tiku b'chodesh shofar, b'keser l'yom chagenu. No, that's right. I'm sorry, you're right. Every has to be by day. Tiku b'chodesh shofar, b'keser chagenu. So what Yom Tov are we talking about? By Tiku b'chodesh shofar, b'keser chagenu, Ezel chag shachodesh miskasaboy. Every month, every Yom Tov is usually in the middle of the month where there's almost a full moon. But there's only one Yom Tov where you don't see the moon, which is a Yom Tov that falls on Rosh Chodesh, which is Rosh Hashanah. Havayim is Rosh Hashanah. So that's how we know Tikva b'Chodesh Shover by Kesel Chagenu is referring to Rosh Hashanah. Uksivki Chak Yisraelu Mishpat L'Yaakov, which is which I mentioned. Ma Mishpat B'Yom, just like a Mishpat has to be B'Yom, Av Kiddush HaChodesh B'Yom, Kiddush HaChodesh has to be B'Yom as well. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we were Zoicha to finish this beautiful daf, and tomorrow, Hashem, we will learn daf Yud Beis.
Yes, Hashem.
Everyone should have a gesinnte Geschmack Woche. Everyone should enjoy the latkes and the donuts and the Hanukkah parties.